What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Game Time Podcast. We are coming to you right after Game 5 of the NBA Finals, right? Game 5? Yes, Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Pacers get the win 109 to 120, and the big topic of conversation, Jalen Williams, 40 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31 points and 10 assists. Um, and then the rest of the Thunder players, I mean, they were there. They were effective as well. Carson Wallace was pretty big in the first quarter, I'm pretty sure, and him and Aaron Wiggins, they were pretty good in the first half. On the side of Indiana, you had Pascal Siakam with 28. The biggest factor that their game was even close in the second half. TJ McConnell, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And then after that, you've got Neesmith with 14, Toppin with 12, and that's about it on the side when it comes to the Indiana Pacers. So there's a couple talking points we can go on here with. Of course, I've got Daryl with me here on the pod. My overall thoughts was the Pacers could have won this game. They kept it really close. They got really close. But I think the biggest thing tonight was the turnovers, especially in the fourth quarter. They had a huge chance to make this game a tie ball game at one point where it was like the closest they got was about 5 points. And it went from 90
It was
some,
90. It was 2 points. They got it within two.
and then all of a sudden I look back and it was 100. So it's like
Yeah.
it just a lot of turnovers, costly turnovers. And I think the other thing is also, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this, I think McConnell should have been in instead of Halliburton. I get he's hurt, and I get that's the star player, and it's, he should be out there, da-da-da-da-da. I think Halliburton hurt your chances of winning more than he helped them in that moment in the fourth quarter. I get McConnell's a lightning rod. I understand that we've seen him be the starter for this team before, and it hasn't worked out well. But I just think he was too hot, and he was doing way better with the team around him than Halliburton is doing with the calf tightness that Sham said at halftime. I respect him going out there and playing, but in that moment, I think Carlisle should have put McConnell in because I think it would have put him in. I'm not saying they win the game, but I'm saying it would have put him in a better spot to win.
I got flashbacks of last year against Boston with Tyrese Haliburton. After game three, actually during game three, he came up with lame, right, with the hamstring. Take that back, it was game two. It was the end of game two because game three was at here in Indiana. Um, Man, he just in these situations, right? We can, I don't think he's a front runner, right? I think that when things are going well, he plays well. When things aren't going well, there's some opportunity there, right? And when I say, things aren't going well for him individually, Luke Dort has been allowed to grab him, right, and to move him. Luke Dort is about probably 220 pounds,
Yeah.
maybe 225. He's so much stronger than Tyrese Haliburton. You aren't going to call all those calls as fouls. So the folks that are going to say, well, you foul him every time he plays. It's still basketball, man.
Yeah.
And you got to get away from that. You got to get him off you, right? And not just by getting screens, but you got to get him off you. And he didn't do that tonight. He didn't do it in game four, actually. So now you put your team you're the best player, right? And the team's supposed you're the best player. You're the superstar guy, right? And that's why I've been kind of hesitant. It's great, middle of the game, middle of the season. You get some big shots at the end of some games. That's great. But man, his teammates needed him tonight. When I say him, I mean TH. And he wasn't there. Calf injury be damned, right? So, you'd have to ask Rick, should you have kept TJ in or took, TH and put him on the bench. But at the end of the day, TJ's got to get a blow as well. He played his ass off in that third quarter. He needed a blow. He was spent, right? So does that mean, you play him through the whole fourth quarter? No, you don't do that. That's just not smart. But with that said, do you get him a blow when you get him back in the game to be the second ball handler, not the main ball handler, but the second ball handler? And that's a question that Rick has to answer. But with all that said, those untimely turnovers in the fourth quarter, where you can take the first 3 quarters, you can throw it in the garbage. Doesn't
Yep.
matter. You're
Yeah.
down 2 points. You're down 2 points in the fourth quarter. You're pretty much even. So then what happens is wasn't extra pressure. It was just lack of composure,
Yes.
lack of discipline, and you threw the ball away. I think they had 7 turnovers in the fourth quarter in a span of about 5.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what doomed them right there, down two to down 12, right? Because of those things, right? And the other part for me is my concern is when that ball hits the rim and the glass, Oklahoma City is going to get it. The Pacers, they still got guys leaking out, and that's all great when you're playing against teams not named Oklahoma.
Yep.
But you got to get that ball first. So it's a little disappointing, but Game 6 is on here on Thursday. There's an opportunity to win the game because this game tonight was close in the fourth quarter. Thursday game is going to be close as well. What do you do when it's time to your ass cheeks get tight, right? Do you keep hooping or do you fall like you did in game 3? I mean, excuse me, in game 4.
I think
That's
game
up to
three.
that's up to Rick. Game 3 they won,
Well,
but,
four, and
yeah.
five.
But so with that said, that's up to Rick to get his guys in a position to be willing to fight. He put Tony Bradley in, which surprised me because he doesn't get enough down the court as well as Thomas Bryant does. But those are some questions I would ask Rick myself. What went into your decision to play Tony Bradley versus Bryant, and then what went into your decision to not bring TJ in at about 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter when it was clear Tyrese wasn't that guy tonight?
Yeah, Halliburton couldn't. He wasn't him. He wasn't himself. He wasn't himself tonight. That's the best way to put it. If you ask me, I don't think he should have been out on the floor at all. I think it should have been McConnell and Nemhard, and that's what they should have ran with. And then you can obviously swap out Neesmith and Mathurin here and there. Um, but no, I don't think Halliburton should have been in. I don't think it was the right call. Even when they subbed him, I said this is probably where the game may be over because I didn't agree with it. I didn't like it, and I would say I was mostly true. I'm not saying all of it was his fault, but there was a couple moments where he himself turned the ball over in that stretch of
Yeah,
turnover.
the
So
pressure, the pressure. If he's got and I'm not going to sit here and act as though he didn't have some type of ailment. Of course he did, but does that ailment keep you from being able to be effective?
if you're
If the
gonna cut
answer if the answer is yes, that ailment's keeping you from being effective, you got to get on the sideline, right?
if you're gonna come out on the floor, you're gonna get criticized. I
Either way,
this is
either
the
way,
NBA
he's going to get
Finals.
criticized, right?
This
So
yeah, this is the NBA Finals. If you're gonna come out and play injured, then you're gonna get criticized like everybody else.
yeah, yeah,
If this was the first or second round, all right, okay, is what it is. But no, this is the
right.
finals. If you're gonna come out here and play in the finals and your calf's a little tight, I understand that's probably gonna hurt your speed and that first step you take. But at the end of the day, you didn't shoot the ball well before the injury, so it
No,
doesn't even
no,
it doesn't matter to that
because
point either.
everywhere he went, Lou Dort was like his shadow, right? Everywhere he went, and if the referees are allowing you to play that way, hey, God bless them, right? I would say this: if you're gonna have a guy playing that way towards you, you've got to do something. You can't just sit there and let him hold you. And
You're
when I say hold, I'm not talking about hold as in they foul him every time. He's just putting his hands on him and he's not letting him go.
he was 4 for 4 at the free throw line tonight. If you've got to do a little bit of acting to get some type of no, I mean
right, but
let's
that's
call it like it
hey,
is. Like if
listen.
if
Well, we had a segment
I
about this.
understand, but
We had,
at the same
my
time,
point, and I'm agreeing with you.
yeah. Oh,
We had
okay,
a
yeah.
segment about this, and if you Lou Dort flopped a few times, and number two is going to do his share, right? So throw yourself on the floor. Hey, it seemed
Get to
like
the
it's working for
line.
somebody.
If you
It
can't
seemed like it's working from somebody else, right?
he was 0 for 4 of 3, 0 for 6 from field goal. If you can't shoot because like get to the line where no one's gonna bother you, right? Do
Yeah,
what you gotta
yeah,
do.
yeah.
I'm not saying take a really hard first step and blow your calf out. I'm just get to the line, get some contact enough where the ref's gonna blow the whistle and let you go to the line so you're not having 4 points at the end of the game and you can have like 10 or 12.
And I'll say this too. The Pacers got to stop begging for calls, man. They got to play like men and get out there and play basketball. And this is, I'm not going to subscribe to the, oh, it's so much more physical in the playoffs. If you watch the games, it ain't always physical. There's a whole lot of ticky tack too. But you got to say, listen, we're not going to let you just push us around, and we've got to be willing to fight. And I don't know that the Pacers came in there and said, listen, if we get punched in the mouth, we're going to punch back.
Yep.
It was almost like they were saying, come on, refs, bail us out. So and from my perspective, I'm not going to say the bailout from, well, if you played, TJ in the fourth quarter, all would have been well. They just didn't have the look of a team that was ready that was wanting to fight tonight. And it wasn't quite in Madison Square Garden game 5, but it has some feel of game 5 Madison Square Garden. Didn't have a lot of fight. Yeah, we'll get there. I didn't see anybody get a hard foul. I didn't see anybody the white jersey on the ground after having been hit legitimately. That was disappointing as well. So they better come to play on Thursday. If you're going to give this type of an effort tonight, you better come ready to fight on Thursday, and you better take a dub with you. Because if not, it's going to be a long. You can say what we want, right? We got to the finals. We weren't expecting it. It doesn't matter. You're there. So you're there to win, right? So it'll be a long off season. And what's going to happen, watch this. There's going to be a lot of conversation about Mr. number 33, Miles Turner.
Horrible.
When they come in and say, well, horrible. Do you play this guy? Do you pay this guy $30 to $40 million off of what he did in this last series? Yes, that's a snapshot. And that's as a prisoner of the moment.
But that's what's mattered the most.
But I understand that. But listen, let's be frank here. In the first 3 series, he was a huge factor in what went on with those teams. Now, mind you, they played Milwaukee, who always gave them hell. Then you turn around and play Cleveland. You got 2 bigs there, right? Defensive Player of the Year in Mobley. Right. Then you turn around and you play against New York and Big Cat, right? And those type of things. So with that said, he earned a lot in those first 3 rounds. But to your point, the money time is here against Oklahoma. He hasn't shown up on the offensive end.
Not once.
Defensively, he's played pretty well. But that's not what you're going to pay him $35 million a year for.
No.
You're going to pay him $35 million to be a complete player and to knock down open threes, get you about 17 to 19 points a game, 5 or 6 rebounds. He's never going to be Moses Malone on the glass. I want 17 to 19 points, 5 or 6 rebounds, and hit me those timely threes and those timely blocks. And he hasn't been that guy this series.
And when you're Kevin Pritchard, it's do you panic, right? And you flip the other side of the coin. You talk about a team that didn't panic. When their guy didn't perform in the playoffs last year, Jalen Williams, right? They could have panicked and they could have moved Jalen for whoever they wanted, and they kept Jalen, and it is paying off here tonight.
A little different, though.
No, I get what you're saying, but
he wasn't up for a max type contract.
No, I understand what you're saying, but
second year in the league.
Thunder,
right?
I think there was a lot of conversation, kind of like with Boston a couple years ago with Tatum and Brown. There was a lot of conversation of, do you need to get Shea a real co-star, right? Is Jalen going to be that co-star? I'm not comparing the two. I'm not comparing the two, but what I'm saying is, will the Pacers panic, or will they sit still and say, okay, let's bring this roster back again, because they went from the Eastern Conference Finals to the Finals. Can you get back there again? And an East that, let's be frank, the East is going to be weaker without Boston.
It's going to have an opportunity. But the thing is, though, I don't know that the word panic is the right word to say, because he's a free agent, unrestricted. So that's not about panic. It's about the decision you make to pay this guy between $30 and $40 million. I've been on record to say you do, right? This series hasn't changed my mind. Am I disappointed in the fact that Miles hasn't played to the standard of what I thought he was going to play? 100%. Yeah. But also, Nembhard hasn't played to the standard I expect him to play.
Yes.
Tyrese hasn't played to the standard I expect him to play. Neesmith hasn't played to the you go down the line. Only two that have Pascal.
And
except
McConnell.
For Pascal. McConnell.
He's going to
give you 15, 18 minutes. He's going to have those type of games. But let's be real here. This is game 5. three of those games, TJ McConnell didn't show
That's
up.
a good point.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
It's
let's
only
be
been
careful.
Siakam. It's
Right,
only
right.
been Siakam.
So with that said, I think you find a way to sign Miles and you don't mess up this core, right? And I'm not that guy that's going to say, well, man, if they would have got you know this guy to play a little bit better. Well, it happens. Oklahoma has something to do with that.
Yeah.
They've got something to do with that. And the Pacers looked befuddled in the first half. Third quarter, they came out firing on all cylinders, playing like as a team. There was no individual that said, other than TJ in that third quarter and Pascal that said, man, I'm gonna handle this. But collectively as a team, they made the second pass. They made the additional pass. They made the tip rebound, those type of things.
Yeah.
The challenge for them is, Oklahoma's coming in them in waves, right? And they've decided we're going to grab them if we can. If they call a foul, we'll deal with it. We're going to bump them off the spot and we're going to hit them. And they've hit them and they've hit them. And no, they're not any comparison to the bad boy Detroit Pistons, not even close. But
where did you hear that?
People are going to start talking about that. I promise you. Watch, you'll see. And so what I say is, if you're allowed to hit guys and play basketball without it being called, why wouldn't you do that? So Oklahoma's doing exactly what they're being allowed to do. The Pacers just seemed like they were. What Coach said to me tonight? He said it's almost like JV versus varsity, and that was in the first half when we were talking. He and I were chatting back and forth. It looked JV versus varsity. Third quarter looked varsity versus varsity. First half of the fourth quarter, varsity versus varsity. That 6 minutes in, and when they were down 2 and it was back to back to back, got it up to 10. Then got it to 12. It was good night, Irene.
I agree. I think I agree. Carlisle's gotta figure out what you want to do now heading into Game 6, because in my opinion, if Haliburton is not 100%, this series is over in Indiana. Which you would have never heard me say. Not if Haliburton was healthy tonight and he had a
he's gonna play. He's gonna play Thursday.
If he was healthy,
depends on where he is.
I would say
he is, right?
If they were healthy, I'd say, oh yeah, they're not losing in Indiana. If he's not healthy, yeah. I don't think they win in Indiana.
Well, he wasn't healthy tonight, and they had an opportunity to win when they're down 2 points, right? And then all of a sudden, Oklahoma goes on that 12-point run. So he's going to play 20 minutes, 25 minutes a game, even if he is hurt. The question is that going to be enough to give the fans, your teammates, a spark to get over the hump? Yeah. Because that's great, but somebody named Miles, someone named Andrew, someone named Ben, someone named Aaron has to come to play, though. Yes. You can't just say, I'm going to be mid, I'm going to get 10 to 14 points and a couple of rebounds. That can't happen. Someone's going to have one of those type of games and say, listen, let me throw you on my shoulders and let's go ahead and get this win. And right now, at this point, the only guy that can potentially even do that would be I'm talking about Pascal. He's the only guy.
I'm thinking of like
put the team on their shoulders. I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Again, yeah, but he's going to need help, obviously, as well too.
That's what I meant by the help. I meant Obi.
One of those four guys who I just said who haven't played well: Miles, Andrew, Aaron, and of course, and Ben. Ben Mathurin and Ben Shepherd as well. One of those guys come out and got to play a 27-point game, right? Yeah, I just don't know they've got it in them at this point.
I don't think Ben Shepherd should even be touching the floor, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tony Bradley.
I think he only played 6 minutes. He played 6 minutes.
Same thing with Tony Bradley. Same thing with Tony Bradley. I don't think he should have been on the floor either. It definitely should have been. It was fine for the New York series, right? You just needed that extra body. I understand, but in the NBA Finals, why is Thomas Bryant not in, right? Bryant should have been in. I agree with you there, too. There's a lot of questionable decisions made by Carlisle, but I think when your star player's hurt, I think you're just kind of throwing stuff out there to see if he can stick. So I don't blame. I understand, but it's also like, man, it's like, oof. It's like, I think that's how a lot of people feel right now. It's just, ugh.
I'll leave my last comment with this. If you think that TJ is going to play the type of game on Thursday he played tonight, you're looking at fool's gold.
You're looking at
fool's gold.
You're looking at like a 50-50.
I wouldn't say that. I would say 25-75.
Okay.
Because you know
Ah,
why? Because they dared him to shoot tonight. They
they did.
backed off of him. They
Yeah.
backed off of him. That's not going to happen again, right? So it's got to be from someone else. It's love TJ. Give me 15, 18 minutes, great. But they backed off of him, and they gave him an opening, but he took advantage of it, and he kicked the door in when he was there playing.
He did, and that's why I said I'll give him 50-50 because he could do it again. I think there's times
I'll
where
bet you on that.
there's times I doubted TJ, and then TJ like
uh,
completely shocks me.
uh,
So
yeah,
I will
okay.
I'll give him some credit. I'm not gonna put money on it, but
No, I'm teasing. But just saying, just when a team has an opportunity to prioritize you, he doesn't play as well
oh, he
on the
shouldn't
offensive
start. He's
end.
got to come off the
Right.
bench if it's gonna
Yeah.
work. If he
But that's the
starts,
problem.
it's
If Tyrese is out, you just say he's got to start, right? So that's going to be tough. So
yeah.
that's why I say that's why I say Tyrese he needs to play between 20 and 25 minutes, man, to
I'll
get the
say
Pacers a shot to win.
if Halliburton was healthy, I'd say they'll win Game 6. But at this moment in time, with
A lot of days
with
away, man. He's got what 2 weeks?
I understand
Yeah,
with things up in the air.
shoot him
I
up a little bit. We'll see what happens, right?
I it may be over. I think it may be over. And you know what? And if it is over, like you said, I think it was the last episode. Like they got to this point, and I think a lot of people thought they would lose in 5 games, right? So
Yeah, but still though, you don't want to go out like that though. You don't want to sit there and say, well, we played really hard, we got there, we no one expect. No, you get there, you want to win,
no,
right?
I agree.
So
I don't.
I
Yeah.
I, I believe that Rick's gonna pull out all the stops,
Yep.
whatever those stops he has to try to manufacture a win, and then you roll the dice in Game 7. That's
Games.
that's what I see happening, right?
Yeah.
Seeing the Pacers lose 3 games in a row, and that give you an example. So they hadn't lost back to
Back to
back
back.
games
Yo, either of
in
them.
94 days. That was March.
Either of
So
them
now
haven't
now
lost
you're
in a
back to
while.
back games, 2 games, right? So what's going to happen? Either A,
They,
Pacers are going to lose 3 in a row, or the Pacers are going to win 2 in a row. So because that means they would win the title if they win 2 in a row. You follow
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, man. Thursday will be here before we know it.
Yeah, I think right now I lean towards OKC, but I do want to talk about OKC too because I think I said it very early on when we started. I said this is their title to lose, right? I mean, this was their championship. I think a lot of people thought this was theirs to win or theirs to lose. And they proved me right because
Right.
I mean I had them coming out of the Denver series. I think I picked them against Minnesota, but I truly don't remember. But I just remember the Denver series was that crucial point for them.
Yeah.
About not only with this core, but just as this team in general, about can they get it done, right? Sam Presti won GM or Executive of the Year, bringing in Hartenstein and Caruso. Basically, like there was no excuses here for OKC to not at least make the finals.
Well,
Uh,
right. You can
and
say
that
that.
and the Denver series was that crucial point where it's like, all right, this is the biggest fish that you guys have caught, that you guys are
Yeah.
playing against. Can you get the job done? And they got the job done in 7 games. But I think
Yeah.
it's a testament to Denver. Like you had
Yeah.
a
They
couple
it was a patchwork
like
job,
you
man.
got
That's a
that was a band-aid on a gash, that Denver roster,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they took it to
That was a
seven
band-aid on a
games.
broken arm.
Like
Right,
you could
right,
say Jokic was the head
right,
coach at some points in
right,
that.
right.
So it's like I give all the credit in the world to the Nuggets, but I give a lot of credit to this OKC team.
Yeah.
If they win this chip,
You got to give them credit, man. Those those those
It's a
guys out there
testament to that
balling, man.
organization and
Yeah.
you know we talked about how both organizations have had their struggles in this decade about losing stars and then rebuilding and everything else. I think I think we both kind of agree Indiana has seen the worst of it between the two, but OKC has had their fair share of heartbreak,
Well,
right?
I
No,
can't give them that. They
I'm just
18 years, and I can't. I'm
I'm
sorry.
just
You,
like
I'll let
well
you handle that one, man. I can't.
just
18 years.
well, I know some Thunder fans, right? I've got family in Texas that they're from Oklahoma, so they root for the Sooners. So they're Oklahoma fans. So
Right.
for them, they followed this team since it's been there. So they've seen, them lose in the finals and then think, "Oh my gosh, we've got this big three for the next decade," and they trade Harden and then Durant
But
leaves
but
and
but let's be real here. the same franchise decided not to sign Harden.
No, 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 no. I'm
They
not.
they
I'm
weren't
not.
going to
I'm
pay
not
him, so it wasn't
disagreeing.
like he
I
went away in free
understand.
agency, right? So
I
we got to be
understand. I
careful because a lot of people
understand.
don't know that. A lot of people, oh, they had that big three and they let him go.
No, they
They
traded
decided not
Harden.
to pay.
They
They did not
decided not to pay
decided not to
Harden.
pay him, and they decided to keep those big two. What they didn't realize was it looks as though those guys didn't get along.
I guess not. I don't
Those,
know. I don't
those,
know.
that. I mean, I'm just saying from the perspective of what you're
Who? Katie
seeing.
and Westbrook?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I thought you were talking about the three. No, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It seemed like
Those,
Katie
yeah,
and Westbrook
yeah.
aren't getting along. But props to the Thunder, props to the Pacers. This has been one of the best finals in the last couple of years. We've said that. A lot of people on social media are saying that. This has been a great finals. The basketball's been really good. These playoffs have been really good. I
Yeah.
know Daryl says it all the time where it's like, it's not physical, but even he's admitted like these playoffs have been the most enjoyable
Listen,
for
I'll,
him in a
I'll
long
admit it, man.
time.
I'll admit this has been the best playoff, run I've seen in a long time. In
Yeah,
a
no,
long
I
time, right?
agree. I
Not just because the Pacers are in the finals, but you want to appreciate good basketball. And as a basketball fan, I want to watch it, but it's hard to watch it when you see a bunch of shenanigans, right?
mhm.
It's easy to turn away when you see shenanigans, but when you look at this, I don't think there's been any scuffling at all in this series. When Hardenstein pushed Obi, that was just pushing the guy because he fouled, whatever like that. But there's been no mess,
No,
and
no, I agree.
that's what I like about it, right? As a Pacers fan, you just wish your team came to the physical fight like Oklahoma did, right? But I like the fact there's been no mess, no BS, and guys just out there balling.
Yeah, and we were on the topic of OKC and Kevin Durant. We're gonna end this finals recap to get some last minute news in here. Kevin Durant wants to play for the Spurs, per the Athletic. That is his top destination. I don't know if we've mentioned it on the pod yet that his top three are Houston, Miami, and San Antonio. But the Spurs are his top destination, and honestly, Daryl, I don't think that's a surprise. You look at the three destinations that he's favored in. I think San Antonio is the most intriguing one out of
Texas,
the group.
Texas.
To Kevin
Went to
Durant's,
school in Texas.
well, to
Went to
Kevin
school in
Durant,
Texas.
yeah, to Kevin Durant's mind, I think it makes the most sense for him to think, yeah, I mean, they've got the best prospect since, everyone wants to say LeBron, but, we've said Zion's we've been saying a
No,
bunch of
no, no.
prospects are the
I would
best.
say LeBron was the. I'd say LeBron. I
Okay,
mean,
okay. I
yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
because
yeah,
people
yeah.
people have
The
said
dude, you
Zion
got to
and
live up
people are
to it.
saying
You got to
Cooper
live up
Flag
to it.
now.
And,
Yeah.
and while I'm not a fan, a LeBron fan, you got to own it, man. This dude has lived up to every ounce of hype that he got from high school till he went to Cleveland, a dumpster fire of a city and
Brought
a
them to the
team
finals.
going to
to
Miami, back to Cleveland to LA. Absolutely, you got to give him
yeah.
all the due credit, man. Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and so for me, when I look at, we've got about 10 minutes left in the segment. With KD, the report is he doesn't want to go to Minnesota.
Yeah, I saw that tonight.
Brian Windhorst said it on the halftime show. He said, don't be surprised if Anthony Edwards gives him a call and tries to do his best to convince him to. I wouldn't want to live in Minnesota either if I was Kevin Durant. So,
But here's the thing. Here's what
credit.
really baffles me about these guys with
Go
that.
ahead.
Dude, you just playing basketball in a damn arena.
Yeah.
Get you an apartment, man. You ain't gotta live there in the summer. You gotta live. I mean, you go
Yeah.
home, get your apartment where there's nothing to do. KD's not a guy that goes out and parties like that anyway.
And I think
So
so.
so he's from DC, right?
Yeah.
He's from DC. He played ball at Texas, right? Yes, DC. We all know that's a chocolate city. We got that, right? But let's not act as though going from um where he is now in Phoenix. Phoenix is not some crazy party destination. It just
Mm,
has great weather,
yeah.
12 months a year,
Yeah.
So
I
I don't buy that stuff.
So when you look at, I want to talk about Miami because I think Miami could not only be the most intriguing, I think it also makes the most sense when we talk about, because me and you have talked about trades and how they would work and stuff like that. And I already said I think Miami has the most assets to get it done. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I think if you're Miami, you trade Tyler Hero, you don't trade Bam. I think I'm
And
set on that. I think you
if
trade
I'm a
Hero.
Miami fan, I would say trade Tyler Hero, especially if you're looking at KD.
Yeah,
Um, but did Bam regress this past year? I was a big fan,
a
and I
little. I
still
think
am
a
a big
little
fan.
bit, but
I'm still a big fan of Bam. I just
there
feel
was
like
just a
he
lot
just
of
kind of
drama.
regressed a little bit.
Well, I think all the drama, and then you're just kind of and then Jimmy gets traded. It's like, well, it's me and Tyler, so it's like I think it
Yeah,
wasn't. I'm not gonna put it on him too much. All I'll say is I have a lot of belief in Bam. I don't know. I can't think of all the centers off the top of my head, but I think he's still a top 10 center. Maybe even closer to the top five, like 7 or 8. If I had to
man.
think, I'm just thinking
After
though. I
last season, he's got to get his range. He's got to get better range. He's not a pick and pop guy. Yeah, if he can get his that 14 to 18 footer consistently, yeah, he'll hit it from time to time. But he's got to stretch his range for me to believe he's a top tier guy.
And I think to me, I think Miami should want it the most, right? The East is wide open in most, and when you think of like the perspective of these teams, I think a lot of people view the East as wide open now.
Well,
Uh,
yeah. Because
yeah,
think about what Boston, right? You got the Boston situation, the uncertainty of Cleveland, right?
yeah,
Then you saw what happened in New York, the way the Pacers punked them, right? So you're like, well, wait a minute, we got an opportunity here as well.
and
Orlando's probably thinking that, right?
and we haven't
Orlando's
even
probably
talked
thinking that.
about that, so we'll end with that too.
Yeah,
We didn't talk about that at all on Sunday
yeah,
when we recorded. I I think, like I said, I think he'll go to Houston, but I wouldn't be surprised with the other destinations. But I think for me, and I've talked about it before, I think conference parity is an important thing. So if KD comes back to the East, I think it would help the East. Just be a stronger conference in general. So I wouldn't mind him in the East. Does it make Miami a contender? I mean, it's got Kevin Durant, so we can say yeah, but it's not going to be a top 3 team in the East. I think it's 4 or 5,
yeah,
and we won't really know where its place is at until we get some games played.
yeah. I'd
Whereas
rather I'd rather stay in the West. I'd
If
rather
you go
stay
to
in
the
the West.
West, San Antonio, we'll see. I don't know how to feel because I mean, I don't want my Lakers to deal with.
Well, that's
I
my
don't want
point.
them to
That's why
deal.
you're saying you want to go
Yeah,
to the East. That's
but
it. Just say it.
No, no,
Just
no,
like
no, no, no,
me
no.
saying I'd rather him stay in the West.
I also think if he goes to Miami, I think Miami is one of the best spots, but I also think it could also be one of the worst spots, right? Because if he goes to the East, I don't know if Miami can still get over the hump with Katie and Bam or Katie and Tyler. I
I
think that's my
mean,
other thing.
look, they gave up assets, last year, and they got some back, obviously, with the Jimmy Butler trade. But you see what happened with KD and Phoenix. I don't know that Miami has the juice if you take one of their core players away and bring KD in. I don't know that he's that guy at this stage of his career. So yeah,
Eh,
I mean, if you go to Miami, I just don't think it's a recipe for a title. I think it's a recipe for 53 wins,
I think for
something like that.
I think for Miami, I think you just kind of need something, right? I mean, unless you want to blow it up, but
Well, I mean,
I don't
we
think
love
Pat
talking about
Riley
their
is the blow it up type of guy right now,
well,
in
we
my
love talking about
opinion.
their culture, right? We talk about their culture, and I mentioned a few calls ago when we talked about their internal things they've got going on. So they love to brush over those things, but they got some real internal challenges going on, not just with Pat Riley, but with the coach and some of his players. You
Yeah.
know, so it's not as it's a slam dunk layup for say KD goes there and they're in the conference finals. I don't see that happening. They got more holes that they've got to fill. KD isn't going to plug all their problems.
Yeah.
He'll get them 50 wins. Help get them 50 wins, not get them 50 wins
And
by
you know
himself.
what? They still won't be better than the team that made that trade yesterday. I think Orlando would still be better than them. So we've got about 4 minutes left in the
I
segment.
would wait and
So
see on this Orlando. I know that's your team, but
no, no, no.
I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid. I'm not drinking that
We've
Kool-Aid
got
just
four
yet.
minutes. I just want give me your after since we've had 24 hours to think about it. Give me your final thoughts on that trade. To kind of cap this off, just what are your thoughts so far? Because
Man,
I see a lot of people now that they've had time to sit on it say they needed a more accurate shooter because when you look, KCP and Cole Anthony were
yeah.
inaccurate, and Bane's a way more accurate shooter. So, and
Well,
I've had time to sit on it too, and I'm like, you know what? It is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but I think if this is that swing, and they still have Anthony Black off the bench and a couple other pieces, they're still the fourth or fifth best team in the East, maybe even third.
I think I wouldn't say third. I think they got weaker defensively. because it's great that
Yeah.
that Baines can get you 20 points, but he's
But
still a
it's the
6'2"
but
shoot.
it's the
He's still a 6'2" shooting guard.
it's the East.
Maybe 6'2". Regardless of that, still a 6'2" shooting guard. And what they just did, they gave up 4 first-round picks and a pick swap,
Yeah.
and you're probably your best defender in KCP. And you've got the backup point guard goes to Memphis as well. I don't know, man. I have to see it in action. There's no way I give them better than fifth right now. I mean, could things happen? It could happen, but right now I'd hold off.
They'll sign some free agents, fill those holes, and we'll see. And then after that, we can kind of come together and.
But you look at those salaries. You look
at those.
I
know. Trust me, I know.
Here's what's happening. Also, people saying, "Well, they got rid of KCP because of that contract." Man, he was at $21 million.
That's why
you brought over Baines at 37.
Yeah, but that's why they also
more than 21.
Keep in mind they gave up 4 picks, and technically they gave up 5, but one of them's a pick swap.
Pick swap, right?
Just insane haul for Desmond Bane, and
they better wind up at worst case scenario 4 in the East.
It begs the question.
That's the worst. With that trade, they better be 4 or better.
It begs the question too. What is Memphis going to do? I've heard they're interested in moving.
I think they're done. I think they're dumping. I think Memphis is dumping.
It begs the question: will they move Jaren and Ja? I'm curious to see it. I'm at last second. We've got like 1:40, and then I'm gonna do the outro. Jaylen Brown, 3 first-round picks for Jaren Jackson Jr. Would Memphis say yes?
I think they're dumping, man. I think they want to rebuild. I think they want to flip and totally rebuild. I mean, I think they want to.
So you don't think they would take?
If I wouldn't do that if I'm Memphis, because Jaren isn't going to be that difference maker for you. And guess what? Brown isn't either. He's not going to keep you relevant. You're in Memphis, man. Hey, if you ain't winning 55 games, they ain't coming. They don't play in the pyramid anymore. They play in that dump called FedEx Forum downtown on Beale Street. I'm gonna tell you, it'll be 5,000 people there in the middle of February after they dump these guys. It'll be fine. You'll be able to go downtown on Beale Street and trade a beer for lower bowl tickets.
All right, well, that's gonna do it. Thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate the 78 views on the latest video we posted.
Yes.
Our interview with Coach Wood will be coming out here soon as well. But folks, that's gonna do it. We'll see you back here for more content right here on the Game Time Podcast.